The USS Meridian floated like a silver needle in the middle of deep space. It was Earth's most advanced diplomatic ship sent to the Zarnith Empire for a historic first contact mission. On board were scientists, linguists, and skilled ambassadors, all dressed in crisp uniforms. But in the middle of all the high-class officers, one man stood out like a wrench in a fruit bowl. His name was Derek Mason. He was not a diplomat, or a scientist, or even part of the official greeting team. He was just a mechanic, a guy who fixed engines, cleaned coolant leaks, and occasionally talked to himself when bolts refused to fit. So how did Derek end up standing in the throne hall of an alien queen? It started with a broken water recycling unit in the ambassador's quarters. Derek had come to fix it, but while climbing through a maintenance shaft, he took a wrong turn and crawled out into the main diplomatic hallway just as the Earth team was being welcomed by the Zarnithian guards. Before he could explain, 2 armored warriors grabbed him and pushed him forward with the others. They assumed he was part of the human party. Guys, Derek muttered, holding his wrench and still covered in grease. No one listened. The giant golden doors opened. Inside the throne room, everything glittered. Tall spires of crystal reached the ceiling. The walls pulsed with a soft blue light. Alien nobles stood in rows, their skin in shades of silver, blue, and violet. And at the far end of the hall sat the most striking figure of all, Queen Zelvana of Zarnith. She was tall, graceful, with deep purple skin and glowing silver eyes. A crown floated above her head, spinning slowly like a moon in orbit. Wore a dress that shimmered with starlight. She looked powerful, wise, and slightly bored, until she saw Derek. He stood in the middle of the Earth group, wiping his hands on a dirty cloth, a wrench sticking out of his tool belt. His shirt had a coolant stain in the shape of a fish. He looked around confused. The Queen's eyes locked on him. There was silence. Then she stood, walked down the steps of her throne, and spoke directly to him. Her voice echoed across the hall.
Are
you single, human? Derek blinked. He looked. Behind him, no one else was there. Me? He asked. Yes, you. The other humans froze. The Earth's ambassador's mouth fell open. Even the alien nobles seemed surprised. Derek scratched the back of his head. Depends who's asking. The Queen smiled. It was not just polite, it was amused, even impressed. Your energy is chaotic, she said. Raw, untamed. You are not like the others. Well, I didn't get the memo about the dress code, Derek said, glancing at his stained clothes. The Queen laughed. It was a soft, musical sound, but with a deep power. Behind it, she turned to her advisors and said something in the Zarnithian language. Within moments, Derek was gently but firmly taken aside by royal guards. Not arrested, but escorted. Wait, where are we going? He asked. You have been chosen for? Royal observation, said one of the guards, a tall, lizard-like creature with golden armor. The Queen is curious about you. Observation? I'm just a mechanic. Precisely, the guard replied. Back on the Meridian, chaos exploded. The human ambassador, Dr. Lydia Tran, paced back and forth in her room. They took him. They took Derek Mason, a grease monkey, and she asked if he was single. What does that even mean in their culture? He's not trained for this, said the captain. He once installed a coffee machine in the engine bay. But somehow, Lydia said, stopping, the Queen is interested in him. We need to figure out why fast. Meanwhile, Derek was being washed, dressed, and led through beautiful alien gardens. Floating plants moved when he passed, and glowing fish swam in the air like birds. This is insane, he muttered. He was finally brought to a balcony overlooking the Zarnithian capital, a city built in layers of floating platforms, crystal towers, and swirling lights. The Queen stood there, hands behind her back. You are different, Derek Mason, she said. Yeah, people say that. Usually right before asking me to leave, she turned to him. Our legends speak of entropy-born beings from the stars who carry the power of change. Your presence feels like that. Just a guy with a wrench, Derek replied. I fix things. Exactly, said the Queen, stepping closer. That is why I asked. Are you single? Derek swallowed. Start with lunch and see where this goes. She smiled again. Very well, human. Let us begin. In the stars above, history quietly shifted. Earth's fate. The Zarnith Empire's future. In one mechanic's very odd day, we're about to change the galaxy. And it all started with a question. Derek Mason had fixed a lot of strange machines in his life. Broken power coils, overheating fusion rods, even a malfunctioning snack dispenser that kept launching protein, PARs like missiles. But nothing prepared him for the royal guest room he now sat in. The walls glowed softly with pulsing blue light. The bed looked like it was made of floating feathers, and the bathroom had more buttons than a spaceship's control panel. Two Zarnithian attendants stood nearby, watching him closely. Every time he moved, they took notes on strange glowing tablets. "I'm not a science project," Derek muttered, adjusting his new outfit, a royal robe stitched with silver threads. "I just fix things, mostly with duct tape." The Queen had ordered him to stay in the palace for further observation. She claimed his energy was unique. Entropy-born, she called it, and something about his presence felt important. He still had no idea what any of that meant. Suddenly, a small orb floated into the room and projected a glowing message in front of him. "Royal guest Derek Mason, please report to the Hall of Echoes for the ritual of protocol." Derek sighed. "Great, more weird alien rituals. Can I at least bring my wrench?" The Hall of Echoes was massive. Tall pillars, shining floors, and murals that moved like living paintings. Zarnithians lined both sides, dressed in royal garments. Whispering as Derek walked past, he tried to act confident, even though he felt like a lost tourist in a museum. At the far end stood Queen Zelvana, her long robe trailing behind her. She looked powerful, as always, but there was a spark of humor in her silver eyes. "You came," she said. "Good, I didn't have much choice," Derek replied. "There were 6 guards outside my room." The Queen raised an eyebrow. "It is custom to learn the ways of our people when entering courtship." Derek coughed. "Courtship. Yes, you passed the first glance. Now comes the trial of harmony." "Hold on," Derek said, raising his hands. "There's a trial." "For what?" "I thought we were just talking." "Zarnithian culture," the Queen said. "Choosing a companion is sacred. It is not about beauty or status. It is about energy, chaos, and harmony. You must face 3 trials." Derek rubbed his forehead. "Look, I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about cosmic energy or royal rituals." "Good," Zelvana said with a small smile. "That is why you might succeed." The first trial was simple, at least in theory. He was taken to a giant room filled with ancient alien machines. Some were broken, some were sparking dangerously. One looked like it might explode at any moment. "Restore the flow," said the judge, a tall Zarnithian with metal wings. "Great," Derek muttered. "They want me to fix stuff? Finally something I understand?" He picked up a set of tools, not his usual kind, but close enough. Within minutes, he was deep in wires, circuits, and strange glowing tubes. The Zarnithian nobles watched silently, expected calm, calculated movements. Instead, Derek muttered to himself, banged on pipes, used a spoon to tighten a bolt, and even slapped one machine when it refused to start. Bang! The machines lit up. The room glowed. Energy flowed again. The crowd gasped. How did he do that? What Noble whispered. He just hit it. Derek wiped his hands. Fixed. You're welcome. Queen Zelvana looked proud and amused. The second trial tested moral clarity. Derek was shown a hologram of a damaged Zarnithian transport ship falling toward a sun. He had two options: save the ship and let a space station lose power, or let the ship burn and protect the station. The nobles debated for hours. But Derek only took 10 seconds. Divert power. Save both. The judge frowned. That would cause both systems to fail. Not if you reroute power through the external solar collector and jumpstart the station afterward, Derek explained. The nobles stared. That might actually work. It's messy. It's risky, Derek said. But hey, that's life. The third trial was strange. He had to spend 1 hour speaking to a glowing plant that responded to emotion instead of words. Derek talked about his childhood, his first broken engine, and how much he hated automated coffee machines at the end. The plant bloomed, something it hadn't done in centuries. The trial passed. Later that night, Derek sat on the edge of a balcony, looking at the stars. He still wore his royal robe, but now it was stained with engine grease again. Queen Zelvana approached quietly. "You passed all 3 trials," she said. "I wasn't trying to, I was just being me." "Exactly," she said. There was silence for a moment. Then Derek spoke. "Why me, really? I'm just a guy who fixes things." "You are chaos and order," the queen said softly. "You do not follow rules, but you bring things into balance. That is rare." He looked at her, confused and curious. "Do you really think I could be part of this royal thing?" "You already are," she said. "The galaxy is changing. I believe you are part of that change." Derek chuckled. "So am I some kind of cosmic mechanic now?" The queen laughed. Perhaps back on Earth, the news had reached the council. Everyone was confused, angry. Some were panicking. "He's passed all 3 royal trials," Ambassador Lydia Tran shouted. "Derek Mason?" The reply came through from Zarnith. "Yes. And the queen seems to like him a lot." "What is happening?" someone asked. No one knew, but the story was just beginning. Derek Mason never thought he would be the center of attention in an alien empire. Back on Earth, he was just a mechanic. He fixed engines, cleaned filters, and talked to machines like they were people. Now, he was being followed around by royal guards, praised by alien nobles, and stared at by glowing plants that whispered poems about his raw human energy. Worst of all, someone kept trying to brush his hair. "Stop that," Derek said, waving away a floating grooming drone. "I'm not a pet. You're a royal candidate now," said a servant. "You must look presentable. I looked fine before. You had grease in your beard." "That's how the engines know I care," Derek muttered, since passing the 3 royal trials. Derek had become a kind of celebrity on Zarnith. News reports showed his face everywhere. Artists painted him as a glowing hero. Kids ran around pretending to fix invisible machines with invisible wrenches. Some aliens called him Entropy-born. Others just called him the Human Queen. Zelvana had announced something shocking to the Empire. She would begin the bonding trial, a process to choose a royal consort, and Derek was the first participant. This made the Earth diplomats very nervous. He can't marry an alien. "Queen," Earth Ambassador Lydia Tran shouted during a call with the palace. "He's not trained for this. He's not even clean." "He fixed 3 of our oldest machines," said the Zarnithian Council. "He brought life to the trial plant. The Queen favors him. He once used duct tape to hold his boots together. Perhaps this is part of the charm," Lydia sighed. "Earth will send a proper ambassador soon. Until then, try not to make him king of the galaxy." Meanwhile, Derek was not thinking about thrones or titles. He was crawling under a power station, tools in hand, trying to stop a core meltdown. "Someone tell me again why I'm fixing a royal reactor?" he asked. The backup engineers refused. "They said it was cursed," said the guard standing nearby. "Of course it is." The core was glowing too bright. The energy coils were unstable. But Derek didn't panic. He wiped sweat from his forehead, adjusted his grip on the wrench, and whispered to the machine, "Come on, old girl. Let's not explode today." Click. Hiss. Clunk. The power core hummed softly, stabilized. Derek stood up, covered in dust. See, not cursed, just old and grumpy. Later that day, Queen Zelvana invited Derek to a royal garden. Strange trees floated in the air. Tiny stars blinked. Between leaves, music played without instruments. She stood waiting near a pool of liquid light. "You fixed the reactor," she said, again. "Can't help it," Derek said, sitting on a bench made of glass. It looked sad. The queen smiled. "Why? Do you help us?" "Because stuff is broken," he said simply. "And fixing things makes me feel better." She looked at him for a long moment. "You are unlike anyone I've ever met." "I get that a lot. Are you afraid of what this is?" she asked. "This, you mean, all of this royal stuff?" "Yes." Derek took a deep breath. "I don't know. I didn't plan any of this. I was just trying to fix a water filter." "Now you have a choice," the queen said. "You may leave. Go back to your ship. Return to your world. or you may stay and continue the bonding trial. Derek looked up at the stars above. I'm not fancy. I'm not noble. I don't even know what half your food is. You are honest, she said. You bring light into our order. That is more important than any title. He looked at her, really looked. For the first time, he didn't just see a tall, glowing alien. He saw someone curious, someone strong, and someone lonely at the top of a very large tower. I'll stay, he said. Why? Because maybe I'm not just here to fix machines, Derek said quietly. Maybe I'm here to fix something else. News of Derek's decision spread fast. Some Zarnathians cheered. Others doubted, but no one could ignore him anymore. The rebels, however, were watching closely, far from the palace. In a hidden base, a shadowy figure turned off the hologram of Derek. The queen is distracted, he said. She trusts the human. Should we eliminate him? Asked a warrior. No, not yet, the leader replied. Let her fall in love with him. Let her trust him fully. Then we break them both. Back at the palace, Derek stood on a balcony, looking out over the glowing city. He had no idea what was coming next. He still didn't understand most of the alien customs, but something inside him felt right. Maybe he didn't belong. But maybe, just maybe, this broken empire needed a human mechanic, not to rule, just to fix what no one else could. Derek Mason was learning to live like royalty, sort of. He still didn't care for the fancy food or shiny robes. But he liked walking through the city with Queen Zelvana. The people waved at him. Some even called him Fixer of Stars. He didn't understand the language perfectly, but he could feel their warmth. He still carried his wrench everywhere. Not as a weapon, as comfort. As memory, because deep down, he was still a mechanic. And something in the Zarnathian capital didn't feel right. The energy grids flickered more often. The royal guards seemed tense. Even Queen Zelvana looked tired one evening as the sun set behind floating towers. Derek found her alone in the throne hall, staring at a glowing map of the empire. You okay? He asked. She turned slowly.
Us.
There are ... whispers, movements in the outer systems. A group of nobles believes I've grown weak. Because of me? Partly, she said. They see our bond as a threat to tradition. They believe the empire must stay pure, cold, controlled. Oh. Derek stepped beside her. Aid. But that's what broke it in the first place, right? She gave him a soft smile. Yes, but change is dangerous. So is doing nothing. Later that night, a coded message arrived in secret. A Zarnathian informant warned of a planned rebellion. One of the old warlords, General Korloth, had gathered ships and soldiers in the Dark Zone beyond the Twin Moons. His goal was simple. Act. Remove the Queen and destroy everything tainted by human chaos. Including Derek, the Queen held an emergency. Meeting with her council, many argued that the humans should be sent back to Earth immediately for safety. But Derek stood and spoke. I'm not running, he said. If they want to fight, they're not just fighting you. They're fighting what we're trying to build. You are not a soldier, said one of the ministers. No, Derek replied, gripping his wrench. But I've fixed worse messes. Preparations began quickly. The Queen ordered her fleet to patrol the outer rings. Derek volunteered to help, but was told he didn't belong in battle. So instead, he did what he did best. He fixed things. He worked with Zarnathian engineers, upgrading old drones, reinforcing power cores, and reprogramming defense systems. He added human tech where he could. Simple stuff Earth had stopped using years ago, but Zarnath had never seen. Why are you installing wires instead of energy links? One alien asked. Because no one hacks a wire, Derek said, with a grin when the attack finally came. It was fast and brutal. General Korloth's ships appeared out of a shadow field and struck the outer defenses. Several towers were hit. Power across the eastern sector went down. Derek was on the lower levels of the palace. When the alarm started, boom, the ground shook. Smoke filled the air. Without thinking, Derek grabbed his tool belt and ran toward the nearest lift. Where are You going? A guard shouted. To help, he said. The core tower's going down, I know that hum. It's overheating. At the power station, chaos ruled. Sparks flew from broken panels. Engineers shouted in panic. Derek pushed through. The smoke? Where's the overload? He yelled, Primary junction. It's melting. Give me gloves and get out of the way. Derek climbed into the control shaft, his hands moving fast. He shut down one valve, redirected heat flow, and banged on a jammed coolant tube with his. Wrench. Clunk, the hum stopped. The light returned to normal. The system was stable. Outside, the battle turned. The Queen led her fleet from the command tower, sending calm orders over the comms. The upgraded drones, enhanced by Derek's ideas, moved faster and smarter than expected. The rebels didn't know how to fight this kind of chaos. Every time they adapted, something changed. Wires, smoke bombs, low-tech traps. In the middle of the confusion, a small Earth-made shuttle flew straight into a rebel flagship, not to crash, but to release a jamming pulse built from old radio. Parts Derek had installed. It worked. The rebel command ship lost control. The Queen gave the final command. Disable. Do not destroy. The battle ended. After the dust settled, the Queen called for Derek. He walked into the throne hall, covered in soot, his robe torn, but his grin wide. You ignored orders again, she said softly. You're welcome, he said. The council stood in silence. Then the Queen stood, lifted a small silver badge, and placed it on his chest. By the power of Zarnith, I name you Honorary Guardian of the Core. Derek looked down at the badge. Is this a real title? Yes. Can I still fix things? She laughed. That is your true power, Derek Mason? You fix what others abandon. That night, the city glowed brighter than ever. People sang. Lights danced in the sky. Children wore toy tool belts in honor of their new hero. Derek stood beside Queen Zelvana on the balcony, watching the stars. Didn't think a guy with a wrench could stop a war, he said. You didn't stop it with a wrench, she replied. Oh? Stopped it with your heart. Derek smiled. That's weirdly romantic. She looked at him. Derek, do you remember the first thing I asked you? He nodded. Yeah. You asked if I was single. Ain't now. He looked at her, then at the city below. Not anymore, Your Majesty. The Zarnathian sky was dark. Not because it was night, but because smoke from damaged ships still floated above the city. Queen Zelvana stood at the edge of her command tower, eyes fixed on the horizon. She had stopped the first wave of rebels, but she knew it wasn't over. General Korloth had escaped. He had lost the battle, but he had not surrendered. Now he was hiding somewhere in the far reaches of the Empire, building a stronger force, gathering more supporters, angry nobles, old military leaders, anyone who feared change, and they all wanted one thing, to destroy the Queen and remove the human, Derek. Mason stood on a platform near the palace hangar, helping engineers repair a damaged transport drone. His sleeves were rolled up, face smudged with oil. And he still wore his favorite tool belt, even with the fancy silver badge the Queen had given him. One young Zarnathian approached him. You are a royal hero. Why are you fixing machines again? Derek wiped his hands. Because they're broken. The young alien tilted their head. But others can do that now. Derek smiled. Maybe, but this is what I do. Wires, circuits, coolant pipes, they make sense, like politics. The young one nodded, still confused. At that moment, a guard ran in. Derek Mason, you're needed at the command chamber. Urgently. Inside the high tower, Queen Zelvana stood with her generals, looking at a large holographic map. Red lights blinked across it. Korloff's fleet just appeared near the Nearth system, the general said. 3 planets are already under attack. Civilian ships are fleeing. He's broadcasting a message, the Queen added. He says this time, he won't hold back. Derek stepped forward. Then what's the plan? The Queen looked at him. we fight. Okay. But not just with ships, said the general. This time, we need strategy and chaos, like last time. They all looked at Derek. Double quotes. Oh no, he said, raising his hands. Don't look at me. I'm not a war planner. But your randomness helped win the last battle, said the general. Your human mind is unpredictable. Exactly, Derek said, because I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe your greatest strength, the queen said softly. Derek groaned. Fine, I'll help, but I want to keep my wrench. 3 days later, the royal fleet launched. Dozens of ships soared into the stars, their engines glowing like suns. Derek sat in the lead ship beside Queen Zelvana, feeling nervous. He looked at the battle screen. Okay, so what's the plan? Fu, tell me, said the queen. He thought for a moment. Let's confuse them. Use old ships from the scrap yards. Paint them to look like royal warships. Hide real drones inside asteroids. Turn power lines into traps. The generals listened, surprised. Also, Derek added, send a fake signal saying I'm hiding on one of the moons. Make Korloth come there personally. The queen smiled. You want to bait him? Oh, I want to surprise him. In the Nearth system, Korloth's fleet arrived with thunder. Giant battle cruisers moved through space, weapons ready. His soldiers cheered. The queen will fall today, Korloth said, and her human pet will beg for mercy. But then, something strange happened. Ships appeared where they shouldn't. Old, broken vessels flew with power. Explosions came. From nowhere. Communications failed. His main ship was jammed by a signal, one that used Earth tech. What is this? He growled. Who is doing this? And then, a small ship crashed into his radar tower, not to destroy it, but to release hundreds of mini-drones. They swarmed his controls, sending sparks everywhere. In the middle of it all, a human voice came through the speakers. Hey Korloth, Derek said, you really should update your firewall. On the surface of Moon 7, Derek stood with a team of Zarnathian engineers. Their job was to shut down Korloth's supply relay, a giant structure that powered his fleet's shields. It wasn't going well. Lasers flew overhead, smoke filled. The sky, one drone was already destroyed. Derek looked at the control box. Too complex. Can't rewire this in time. He looked around, then he saw it. A nearby power pole made of metal rods and a bunch of old jumper cables in the back of their hover truck. Get me that, he shouted. Get what? The cables? And some scrap metal. I have an idea. Within minutes, he built a crude device. What is it? Asked a young engineer. A short-circuit bomb, Derek said. Old Earth trick. He slammed the wires together. Sparks flew. The signal tower exploded in a burst of light. The rebel ships lost shield power. The Queen's fleet struck in space. Queen Zelvana led the charge. Her voice was calm, her eyes focused. Korloth's defenses are down. Move in. Her ships flew with speed and precision. The rebels, confused and scattered, could not hold the line. Within minutes, the battle was won. General Korloth's ship was surrounded. He tried to escape but found his engines offline. On his screen, one last message appeared. Fixed it. Derek, after the victory, Queen Zelvana returned to Zarnath. Greeted by cheers and music, Derek stood beside her on the royal balcony again, dirty, tired, but smiling. You led a fleet, she said. Nope. I just confused the enemy. We saved my people. You saved them, Derek said. I just brought the duct tape. The Queen turned to him. You could return to Earth now. They would honor you. I know, he said, but this place still needs fixing, Derek said, and I'm not done yet. She took his hand. Then stay. Not as a hero, not as a tool wielder, but as my partner. He looked into her silver eyes. I already did. Weeks had passed since the Battle of Nearth. Peace had returned to the Zarnath Empire, at least for now. The cities were being rebuilt. Power systems were restored. The people smiled again when they walked through the crystal-lit streets. For the first time in a long while, hope had returned. At the center of it all, walking through a broken plaza with a toolbox in hand, was a man named Derek Mason. He was no longer just a mechanic, and yet he was still exactly that. Shouldn't. You be in a meeting with the council? Asked a tall alien guard. Derek wiped sweat from his brow. They are talking about trade routes and political stuff, fixing the streetlights, but you are a royal advisor now, a consort, symbol of peace. I'm also the only one who knows how to fix these old Earth-style fuses, Derek replied, twisting a screwdriver. And this one sparks when it rains. That's a shock waiting to happen. The guard tilted his head, then offered a small nod. Understood, ... Guardian of the Core. Derek rolled his eyes, still not used to that title. Back in the palace, Queen Zelvana sat in a quiet chamber made of glass and vines, watching. The stars through the dome ceiling. She'd faced war, rebellion, and centuries of tradition. It survived it all. But this piece felt different. Not because of strength, because of someone who refused to act important, even when he became one. The chamber doors opened. I fixed the lights, Derek said, walking in and brushing dust from his sleeves. The Queen smiled. Of course you did. He sat beside her on the soft bench. You okay? She nodded. I'm still learning how to lead in peace. War is loud. Peace is ... quiet. Too quiet? No, just new. Derek leaned back and looked at the stars. You ever think it's strange? What? That all of this, he waved at the sky, came from a water filter breaking on a Tuesday. She laughed. A real laugh, not just the royal kind. Fate works in strange ways. A few days later, Earth's delegation arrived. Big ship. Flashy uniforms. Cute. Ambassador Lydia Tran stepped out first, looking annoyed and impressed. At the same time, Derek Mason, she said, shaking her head. You've become a legend. He smiled. Yeah. Is it a good legend or one of the embarrassing ones? She looked at him seriously. The Earth Council wants to know your decision. Derek nodded. I figured you can come back home. Earth will honor you. Statues, speeches, maybe even a holiday. Mechanic Day, he asked. She ignored the joke. Or you can stay here. But if you stay, your life changes forever. Derek looked at the palace, then at the Queen waiting nearby. I think, he said softly, my life already changed. Later that evening, the Queen made a royal announcement. Derek Mason had chosen to remain in Zarnath, not just as an advisor, but as an equal partner in leading the new future. Not a king, not a ruler, but something different. A balance, the Empire. Once cold and full of rules, had found its warmth in someone who never planned to lead, but led anyway. In the months that followed, everything began to shift. Zarnath opened peaceful relations with Earth and other worlds. Science and technology were shared freely. New schools were built. New machines were invented, and at the center of the capital, the Queen and Derek worked together every day. She handled laws and visions. He handled broken engines and hopeful ideas. Together, they led with balance. One day, a group of young engineers came to Derek in the lower workshop. They were carrying tools, notes, and hopeful eyes. Teacher, one of them said, can you show us how to build the human gravity stabilizer? Derek turned, covered in grease, smiling like he always did. I'll show you that, said right after we fixed this old reactor. Because learning starts with getting your hands dirty. They laughed and followed him eagerly. That night, as the stars blinked across the sky, Derek sat beside Queen Zelvana once more on their favorite balcony. Do you ever miss Earth? She asked. He thought for a moment. Sometimes. I miss greasy food, rainstorms. My garage you could still visit. I will someday, he said. But for now this feels like home. She rested her head on his shoulder. And me. The reason it became home is far beyond the stars. In the shadows of deep space, other empires watched. Other powers waited. But Zarnath was no longer cold, no longer weak. It had a queen who believed in peace, and a human who taught her that even the most broken systems could be fixed with kindness, courage, and a good wrench. And so the galaxy remembered the mechanic who never asked for power. the queen who saw something no one else did, and how their story changed everything forever.